it's very dynamic in the nature of what we do, and it's always different, and it's very related to conflict, and it all arises. What we find is typically the original plan schedule is just so aggressive, too aggressive, in some cases unrealistic, based on what we've seen, the actual durations. Because as we assess these types of projects, we can actually see over a number of places, if it's a facility, a project in the Africas, for example, we know it's going to be difficult to get materials to site, get not only the team, the resources in play, get the mobilization plans in process. But I think it's becoming common because that's the way these contractors and subcontractors are winning the work. They've got to have that competitive edge to get them in.
So that kind of like, well, we need to win the business in the first place. So we need to put a really good business case forward or a really good plan forward, and almost kind of realizing that that plan can only work if everything is 10 out of 10 along the way.
Exactly that. Exactly that. And just to add to that, typically there's variation. So in the contract, the parties will have variation order clauses, or which allows the parties, if there's an agreement, to have additional works. And with those additional works, it may require additional cost incentives, additional resource incentives, and additional time,
Yeah,
right?
so no
To
different to having the builders in your home and then saying, well, could you actually just paint this room and do this while you're here, and then wondering why they've charged you extra.
absolutely, absolutely that. And it's normal, right? As
Yeah,
as
yeah,
projects evolve, there's some changes or some tweaks that uh, we may want to have, right? And it's I think that's a great example, right? A lot of home extension, home improvement projects, our initial plan of what we would like as it evolves, it most certainly does change in a lot of cases. So
yes. And I know this is a very out of date image, but I'm just reminded of, the very first job I had. I'm thinking of a more sophisticated version of the very first job I had, where there was a sort of facilities manager, and he used to walk around with a roll up cigarette in the corner of his mouth and drive a forklift truck. And if you asked him for anything, he would do, oh, I don't know about that.
yeah, it's true. It's true. And that's where I think experience comes into play,
Yeah.
right? So that forklift driver, he's probably he's seen it all, and his natural resistance to, or his natural reaction to say, I don't know about that. I think it's our experiences that shape the our responses, right? To
So now we're getting into the human aspect of it,
yeah,
because anything can work on paper, can't it? And now you've got to put people in the mix and their wisdom or their foolishness or their experiences or their prejudices. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that, and how these conflicts are avoidable or unavoidable.
yeah, and that's the question you've posed is a very interesting one, and I would say, from my experiences, a lot of these conflicts arise and actually ex become worse over time due to egos in the room, characters, people wanting certain things and not actually willing to sit at the table and listen and really understand the complexities in play. And as experts, as delay experts, we're in a unique position, right? Because we can use the evidence, the tangible evidence presented to us, and paint a picture of what we see. And I think the best experts that I've had a chance to work with over time are the experts that have had a chance to just use the evidence, not to put what our opinion is based on what we feel. It's all based on what we see. And I think this is a key in all types of construction conflicts, whether it's an arbitration, because the report that we give, the strength of it will be based on whether the arbitrators decide that it's the one they go with, so that they can give the award to whichever party they feel fit to, based on the experts write-up. And I think the strength of the evidence, if we're honest with the evidence, with no um, with an objectivity, a humble objectivity, then I think that plays a lot as well. Because sometimes in these arbitrations, we have to go in and testify and explain and give an oral version of our written report. And usually on the other side, there'll be a very smart barrister or legal counsel doing the cross-examination. And it's very apparent to see two things. The first is an expert who has really gone into the evidence and assessed and really understood the issues in play. And the second is it's clear when certain pieces of, they call it exhibits, are brought up on the screen in the room. And it's very clear, it's very quick to identify and see which expert has done their homework, essentially. And so, yeah, I think before it gets to that stage, there's other stages as well. So there's, or other means of resolution. So there's mediation. And in mediation, it's like a less formal path, but essentially it's guided again by the factual evidence and the experts' data. What do we conclude in simple terms based on what we see? And yeah, and I think from experience, that's really rewarding because it creates a platform for the egos in the room to sit down and talk based on the facts. And we're there to serve the truth, as it were. We're there to serve that impartiality um, to the mediator or the adjudicator based on what we see again. And I think the final element is communication. So communication is absolutely key in all walks of life. But in these conflicts, um, they arise because there's typically a breakdown in the channels for communication between the parties. And we see that in letters, correspondence, meeting minutes. You can sense, just reading a meeting minute, you can sense who the hostile parties are. Certain specific questions are asked in a certain way. Certain things are noted down. And there's a lot of unnecessary disagreement. So I think communication is key. And this is where we can come in and say what we see, give that independent perspective, independent view, and potentially create a platform for the disagreeing parties to start communicating and to see if there is a way to resolve.